If you're in your 20s, I want you to stop doing one thing immediately because it feels harmless now, but it quietly destroys your future. I'm 70 years old, and I can tell you with painful certainty that this one habit shaped my entire life more than any failure ever did. I didn't notice it when I was young. That's why it worked so well. It didn't announce itself as a mistake. It disguised itself as normal behavior. Everyone around me was doing it, so I assumed it was safe. I kept postponing my life. At 22, I said I'd get serious at 30. At 30, I said 40 would be the real turning point. At 40, I told myself I still wasn't that old. Then suddenly, I was old. What I didn't understand in my 20s is that delay feels responsible, but it's actually fear. Fear of committing, fear of failing, fear of choosing a direction and discovering you're not as special as you hoped. So instead of choosing, I waited. I kept my life in a permanent preparation phase. Always learning, always planning, always consuming, but never fully acting. I mistook movement for progress. I stayed busy so I wouldn't have to stay honest. I watched others take risks while I told myself I was being smart. I avoided discomfort and called it balance. I avoided responsibility and called it freedom. But freedom without direction slowly turns into emptiness. In your 20s, time forgives you just enough to lie to you. Your body recovers, your mistakes don't show immediately. Your lack of discipline doesn't punish you right away. That's why this decade is so dangerous. You can waste years and still feel like everything is fine, until one day it isn't. And by the time the consequences arrive, they don't arrive gently. I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to tell you the truth I wish someone had forced me to hear. The habit you repeat right now is not temporary. It's training. You are teaching yourself who you are becoming. And the longer you delay taking yourself seriously, the harder it becomes to start, because comfort grows roots, and those roots are hard to pull out. I ignored this in my 20s because nothing seemed urgent. Now at 70, I understand something very clearly. Urgency doesn't come from deadlines. It comes from time already lost. The thing you need to stop doing immediately is living as if your future self will magically fix what your present self refuses to face. I did that for decades. I treated my future like a dumping ground for responsibilities I didn't want to carry yet. Every bad habit, every unfinished goal, every uncomfortable truth, I pushed it forward and told myself I'd deal with it when life slowed down. Life never slows down. It only speeds up while you're not paying attention. In my 20s, I believed I had room to be careless. I spent time like it was cheap. I wasted energy on people and distractions that added nothing to my life. I stayed in environments that made me smaller because they were familiar. And the worst part is, I knew better. Deep down, I always knew. But knowing without acting slowly poisons your self-respect. Each time you ignore that inner voice telling you to do better, it gets quieter. Not kinder, quieter. I also confused comfort with stability. I chose what felt easy over what was meaningful. I avoided discomfort because I thought struggle was a sign I was doing something wrong. No one told me that struggle in your 20s is not a failure. It's a requirement. It's the price of becoming someone solid. I ran from that price for too long, and eventually life collected it all at once. What makes this habit so dangerous is that it doesn't look like self-destruction. It looks like patience. It looks like being realistic. It looks like waiting for the right time. But the right time never announces itself. It only exists in hindsight. By the time I realized I had been waiting for permission that was never coming, I had already built a life around avoidance. If you're in your 20s, understand this. Every day you delay the hard work of becoming disciplined, focused, and intentional, you are choosing a harder future. You're not staying safe. You're borrowing stress, regret, and limitation from the years ahead. I did that borrowing for most of my life, And now at 70, I'm still paying interest. Another thing I wish I had stopped immediately in my 20s was confusing potential with progress. People told me I was capable. They said I was smart, talented, full of promise. And instead of using that as fuel, I used it as comfort. I thought being capable meant I would eventually succeed, even if I didn't act consistently. That belief ruined me slowly. Potential means nothing if it's not converted into action. Unused potential doesn't stay neutral, it turns into regret. I wore my potential like a shield. Every time I fell behind, I told myself I could catch up anytime. Every time I quit, I said I wasn't really trying yet. I kept my ego intact by never fully committing, because if I never gave my best, I never had to face the truth of my limits. That's a dangerous game. It protects your pride in the short term, but destroys your life in the long term. In your 20s, it's easy to hide behind distractions that feel productive. Endless learning, endless scrolling, endless preparation. I consumed information but avoided execution. I talked about goals more than I worked toward them. I stayed mentally busy so I wouldn't have to be emotionally brave. And the years kept passing while I stayed exactly where I was. What no one explains is that identity is built through repetition. You don't become confident by thinking, you become confident by keeping promises to yourself. You don't become disciplined by planning, you become disciplined by doing things when you don't feel like it. I delayed those repetitions for too long. By the time I wanted to change, the habits were already set, and changing them felt like trying to turn a heavy ship with no engine. If you're in your 20s, stop telling yourself that time will save you. Time only reveals who you've been training yourself to be. Every day you choose comfort over effort, you're practicing being weak. Every day you choose action over excuses, you're practicing being strong. I practiced the wrong things for most of my life, and the results were exactly what you'd expect.
The most dangerous part of this habit is that it slowly changes how you see yourself. I didn't notice it happening, but year by year, my standards dropped. I stopped expecting much from myself. Not because I lacked ability, but because it hurt too much to keep expecting and keep failing to act. So I adjusted my expectations instead of adjusting my behavior. That's when real damage begins. In my 20s, every time I said, "I'll start tomorrow," and didn't, something inside me weakened. Self-trust eroded. I became someone who talked more than he did, promised more than he delivered, even to himself. And once you stop believing your own words, motivation becomes impossible. You can't build a strong life on broken promises to yourself. I also learned too late that avoiding responsibility doesn't make you free, it makes you fragile. When you don't carry weight early, life eventually drops it on you without warning. I avoided responsibility because I wanted less stress. Ironically, my life became nothing but stress. Financial stress, health stress, regret, anxiety about time running out. Responsibility chosen early feels heavy, but responsibility avoided always comes back heavier. I thought I was protecting myself from failure. What I was really doing was training myself to avoid discomfort at all costs. That habit follows you everywhere. It shows up in your work, your relationships, your health. You start choosing the path that asks the least from you until your life becomes small enough to fit that choice. If you're in your 20s, stop lowering your standards to match your behavior. Raise your behavior to meet your standards. Do the hard thing even when no one is watching, especially then, because the person you are becoming is listening, and I promise you, becoming someone you don't respect is far more painful than any temporary discomfort you're trying to avoid right now.
At 70, the truth is clear in a way it never was when I was young. The things you refuse to stop now will define the rest of your life. I didn't lose my future in one dramatic moment. I surrendered it inch by inch. Every time I chose delay over action, comfort over discipline, excuses over responsibility. And the cruel part is this: I always knew better. I just didn't act on what I knew.
If you're in your 20s, stop waiting for the version of yourself you think you'll become someday. That version doesn't arrive on its own. He's built, or he never shows up. Stop treating your time like it's unlimited. Stop numbing yourself with distractions that make the days disappear. Stop lying to yourself about how serious you'll be later. Later is not a plan. Later is a story people tell themselves to feel safe while they waste their most powerful years. I used to believe I'd wake up one day feeling ready. I never did. Readiness comes after you start, not before. Discipline comes from repetition, not inspiration. Confidence comes from proof, not hope. I waited for all of those to appear first, and by the time I understood the order, my window had narrowed. So here is the brutal truth I wish someone had forced me to hear when I was young. Your future will not be kind to you just because you are young now. It will reward you only for what you build, what you practice, and what you refuse to tolerate in yourself. You don't need to do everything today, but you do need to stop doing the things that are quietly stealing your life. I can't go back and stop. You still can, and that's the difference between us.